Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee. Do we have any apologies, Neil?
Apologies from Mark Brunel-Walker, Pauline Jorgensen and Andrew Gray. Naji Najella is here as a substitute and Basit Alvi is on Teams.
Thank you. Okay, minutes of previous meeting. Has anyone got any comments about the minutes of the previous meeting? Who was here? Page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, and page 9. Okay. Can we have a show of hands if you're in favour of me signing the minutes? I think that's okay. Okay, are there any questions, Neil? Oh, declarations, sorry. Are there any declarations of interest in any of the items today? No, thank you. And are there any questions, Neil?
No questions of any denomination, Chair.
Thank you, that's good. Right, so we're on to the first item, item 41, the Q1 2025 to 2026 performance report. And I think Stephen is here to introduce this. Over to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Catherine. Yes, I am here just to introduce it. I'm sure there'll be questions people want to ask, which I'll happily allow Sally and Louise to answer. I just want to highlight a few things by way of introduction. And first of all, I guess, is what you could see on page 13, pretty clear evidence that quarter one did see an improvement on the previous quarter. The number of greens has gone up and the number of amber and reds has gone down, which is, I think, by any metric, progress in the right direction. And you can see some of the highlights in the summary of the report on pages 11 to 12. And if you want to know more, you can see in Appendix A, which deals with all of the different service areas. You can see a top win section in each of them, which goes beyond that highlights box and shows you a broader range of things that have been achieved in that quarter. Obviously, this is looking back quite a way at quarter one, and there are things that have occurred since, which I would have loved to have talked about, but we can't. We'll have to wait until we get the quarter two report to talk about some of those. So some of the things here will already, I think, be pretty well known to you. I think that's probably all I need to say by way of introduction, and really leave it to members of the committee to ask questions on any of the indicators they wish.
Okay, Louise, do you want to say something?
I was just going to add just a couple of points, just if that's okay. So just adding to what Stephen's already said, as this is for quarter one for 25-26, you will also note that there are a couple of KPIs that have been retired. They are set out on page 18 of the agenda, and there's one change as well to a KPI. As stated, the appendix, it's set out by directorate, and as I say, I think, Chair, we normally go through directorate by directorate to see if there's any questions.
Yes, yes. And as usual, of course, although we'll go through directorate by directorate, we won't really look at the children's services or health, adults and health. And also, you'll probably notice that there aren't any officers from Place and Growth here. So Neil will have to take any questions about Place and Growth, forward them on. So let's... 23, page 23 then. So this is the resources and assets. It's very oddly laid out, isn't it? Yeah, sorry, actually the section starts on page 20. Alison.
So this is quite a general question for Sally, really. So we're at the start of the year, and without having looked at every single graph, have any of the targets changed? Because I assume this is the point where a new target was introduced.
Sally, you want to answer?
So I can give some detail, yeah. And actually at the back of the covering report, it talks about some of the changes that we're planning to make to the KPIs. So they are static as it stands at the moment until we've made those changes that are referenced here. We're working with Stephen as the lead member for this, and we've also engaged with Pauline to get her views on what that could look like. We're really keen as part of our approach to KPIs moving forward that we're really clear about where they're ringing the bell for the council plan. So as a kind of a statutory minimum for us, for want of a better phrase, we will start to reference where KPIs are delivering against the 4 themes of the council plan and making that absolutely clear. But as part of the process that we'll go through of resetting our KPIs, we will work with directors, we'll work with exec members to start to look at some of those points that this committee has raised, because you've asked us questions about consistently categorising red, and part of that review process, for example, will pick up all of the points really that have been captured over the last at least couple of sessions, if not the last year. So we've absolutely captured all of that feedback that we've got. We haven't discounted it. We're just doing it as part of this kind of do it once type process. So I think that will make sense for us.
I think you were asking how can we know whether things have improved or whatever, but we've got the direction of travel.
No.
Is that what? Oh, you weren't asking, sorry. Okay.
Well, we have each KPI has a target, and I think Sally understood and answered my question.
I understand what you were saying, sorry.
The targets are static, sorry for those online, until we've done the KPI review.
Okay, thanks. Shahid?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just reading on page 16. Before we go into the detail, I just want to, page 16, I just want to make sure I have actually read it correctly. Stephen said it was, the first quarter was end of June. We are 4 months into that, and now we are seeing the KPIs. And this is a question I raise every time, that actually takes months before we see the KPIs. So am I reading correctly that on page 16, the work which is being done, that we will see these much earlier because of the work which is being done? I just want to clarify, because particularly the point on the second paragraph, we plan to implement these changes in midway, which means that as soon as the quarter is finished, you can start working on that, which is January, work to be starting Q3. That means that the KPIs can come to the committee a lot earlier than 4 months later.
So if I take the response to that, and I'm sure Louise will come in with the details. So Interesting, we looked today, and over the last few years, we have done it around this kind of time. And we acknowledge that there is an ambition to bring KPI information to ONS. So, we have heard that from both attending here, but also sessions that we've had with other members. I think part of what we need to understand is what that would look like, because of course, when we produce these reports, it's not just Louise and I or the team, it's a raft of officers across the council that have to pull this information together. And then we also need to make sure that it goes through our political process. So obviously that has a lead in time. It goes through the directorate leadership teams, which you would expect, because as a director for my own area, as Graham would be for his, we want to discuss those KPIs, really get underneath the detail of them and understand what actions we're going to take. It's unfortunately not as simple as being able to speed that up unless we take a completely different approach to how we do that. But I have heard the feedback. I acknowledge what you're asking for. It's in the realms of possibility with the resourcing, etc., that we've got. But one of the positive things we are looking at is how we can, I can say it with colleagues from DDAT, Digital Data and Technology in the room, one of the things we're looking at is how do we utilise Power BI to support us with the automation of what in the past has been quite a manual data collection process. So, but as you can imagine, a number of systems across the council that we collect this data from. So we're doing that in quite a managed approach. So Lou, I don't know if you want to answer.
Just a quick back. I mean, I fully recognise the complexities of this, and obviously it's been, but also my expectation would be with the additional technologies we've got available now, which probably wasn't available a couple of years ago, we should be able to put this together much easier. So that is my expectation, obviously moving forward.
And I don't disagree. So the steps that we've taken forward from a technology perspective, both locally and nationally, are massive over the last few years. I would say that there are areas that we've got a small team of data analysts, and there are pressing areas where those individuals need to be working, not just in my own directorate, that would be selfish of me, but working in a raft of places across the organisation, from children's services to adults, etc. So we absolutely is on our work plan, but we are doing it on a prioritised basis of capacity through to need.
Thank you. Yes, Caroline.
Thank you. I was going to ask a question on council tax collections RA6. In the narrative,
Page 26.
page 26, you mentioned that, I must say, our collection rates are good, but there's some are struggling to find their rent, or not the rent, the rates, and we're providing affordable payments. I presume that's working really well. And also, I just wondered how long this payment plan lasts for. I think I know what I meant. Yeah, thank you.
Graham.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. We have noticed from about 2-3 years ago that clearly the pressure is out there amongst the community, and it was some years ago actually that we worked with the CAB and adopted the protocol around collection. We're very conscious of the fact that it's much better to help people be able to pay if they're struggling. So quite a lot of work goes into making contact where we can and we know to be able to create flexible payments. I wouldn't put any hard and fast rule on what any flexible payment might be. I think it would depend on the personal circumstance. We also obviously have to balance that empathetic and considerate collection with the fact that some would rather, even though they can afford, would rather not pay at all. So we have to, on one hand, show that we're very serious and robust in our collection, and on the other hand, where people are genuinely struggling, we adapt accordingly. I think the biggest difficulty is when people just disengage and we can't work together to create something, and obviously we do all we can to overcome that. So that was quite a long answer, and not a single figure I can give you, other than it depends on the personal circumstances, and the general policy is to be robust wherever it's right to be robust, and to be flexible and accommodating where it's right and appropriate to be so.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear.
Beth?
Thank you, Graham. May I follow up on that as a professional debt collector? How many times have you actually used bailiffs to collect debts? And do you use any debt collection agencies that work on our behalf?
I'll have to come back to you on the number of times we've had to use bailiffs. Obviously, it's the last resort, so I would hopefully be coming back with a relatively small number. It doesn't really help anyone, but obviously has to be there at an absolute last measure. Debt collection agencies, we use external support for things like tracking down empty properties, single persons discounts, ensuring there's been no duplications or errors and things like that. So, and that's fairly common in the local government community. You bring in a specialist piece of work to do that testing. But in terms of ongoing collection, we do that ourselves. And my preference is for us to do it ourselves, because we're in control of not only the robustness, but more importantly, we're in control of that empathetic, more considerate approach.
Just, do you ask them for financials if you're sorting out a payment plan? So you can understand, as you say, whether it's a case of can't pay or won't pay.
Yeah, this team, which is commonly in local government referred to as revenues and benefits, are very well averse to being able to understand and see the signs and the data needed, or the documentation, should I say, needed to demonstrate someone's financial welfare. And it's so that the manager over all of this would be used to, say, in housing benefits, having a very kind of high level of access to information and quality of staff to assess people's capability to pay. And of course, those skills will be transferable into this area around flexible payments.
To Graham's point, in some ways this is analogous to rent collection, and the challenges there again. And the same approach is adopted. It's about tenancy sustainment wherever possible. But a telltale sign, and in both areas, I think, is when people start paying on a credit card. And that can be picked up quite quickly, and we know that's almost certainly a sign of difficulties.
Any more questions about this area? Should we go? Oh, okay, Dave.
I have a more generic question just about the process in its entirety. If I was doing an assessment of this sort of, and somebody asked me to come into their business and have a look at the process, my first thought would be there's too many greens. And the reason why I say that is because green means you've ticked the box, that's great, and that's fantastic job done, stamp of great. And in a way, I prefer to make the standards more testing, so that we were struggling to meet them and there were more ambers, and therefore we were striving to be even better as an organisation more. And that's not said as a criticism of how we're performing, it's just a different approach maybe.
Yes, Sally.
Thank you, Chair. And it's a really good point, and I think you've raised that with us before, Dave, and it's part of the information that we've captured when we look at the review of the KPIs. We know that we have stretch targets in, for example, adult social care. We've discussed that here, even though I know that they talk about the KPIs at their own overview and scrutiny, but we definitely have stretch targets in, but I think it's a fair challenge to us to say, is there an opportunity to build stretch targets in other areas of the council, and have we got the right KPIs? Again, because I think that's a fair challenge that as officers working with our lead members, we should be doing on a cyclical basis anyway. So it's good feedback, and we'll consider it.
And don't be afraid of an amber.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? Don't be afraid of that amber.
Yeah, I'm going to remember that.
Okay, on to place and growth then on page 32. Jade.
Just a question, it's on page 34, regarding homelessness. I mean, question is not about particular about the KPI, but just information perhaps. How many people do we have which are homeless in the borough? Any idea?
We'll have to take that question away, Chair, and come back to you, because obviously it's under George Frownick and he's not here this evening.
It's fair to say the number is constantly changing, because obviously this KPI that you were focusing on, I think, is, if it's the PG1, is about trying to prevent homelessness rather than homelessness itself. And obviously the work you put in to prevention reduces the number of people who become homeless. But there is unquestionably a lot of pressure on, if you look at PG2, that gives you a fairly good indication of the challenge that all local authorities are facing with rising numbers of people who are homeless and are requiring emergency accommodation. Emergency accommodation is the kind of accommodation that's the most expensive and unsatisfactory both to the people who are put in it and to the council. I mean, it's not an ideal situation, but emergency accommodation is the only option when you haven't got enough temporary accommodation, and temporary accommodation is the only option when you haven't got enough affordable housing provision generally. So, you know, this is a big challenge in an area like ours with high housing costs and high private rental costs. It's one that we are focused on trying to improve the quantity and the quality of the affordable housing we've got within the borough. That's vitally important, really, vitally important, not just for the well-being of the people who are put in this tragic situation and being rendered homeless, but also so that everyone's able to better contribute to society by having a good and safe and secure home. It's really important. So it is a priority for us. Sorry.
I agree with you, it is, and also I recognise the complexities around it as well. But I just wanted to have some sort of idea in terms of PG1 or maybe PG2. How many numbers are we being hit with in terms of that? Obviously, but if there's no answer now, we can get that later on.
Yeah, for PG2, you've got some helpful comparative figures there between the different Berkshire authorities, and you can see we're actually in a relatively good place. We and Bracknell, compared with Slough and Reading in particular, but also Windsor and Maidenhead and even West Berks.
Chair, I was just going to say
sure.
there are some numbers on page 37 in the narrative. I appreciate there's a lot of information in this document, so sometimes just seeing where those numbers are. So I think it states there in Q1, housing needs the option service, so 156 households present as homeless or threatened with homelessness. And then it just moves on with regard to how it's managed to prevent homelessness for 46 households. And there's some benchmarking information in there as well. I appreciate you've moved on from there. We're now into a different period, but just so you're aware.
Chair, if I could just say, by way of broader context, and this is by no means intended to either trivialise the impact or indeed the future risk to the council, but I am acutely aware across the country, particularly London, but also in parts of Berkshire, where there are three very, very significant financial pressures that they face. One is adult social care, one is children's services, and the other is temporary accommodation. And at the moment, we've done well in terms of our interventions and supply, obviously in the context of the demand we face, which is different in every local authority. We've managed to contain that considerably, and that doesn't appear as a particular pressure financially for us in Q1. I really hope I am not tempting fate in any way, because of course this is a high risk area, and we know that there's inward migration pressures, population pressure, supply, private sector availability pressures. So all of those means that we have to keep a close watching brief, but financially it is not manifesting into a concern in the way it is in many local authorities.
Okay, we've got any more questions about on the place and growth? It's difficult when there isn't a place and growth person here to respond. Yeah, okay. Okay, page 55, Chief Executive's Office. Nobody got anything to say? Oh, you.
Sorry.
Caroline,
Thank you.
over to you.
Thank you. It's only a quick question on page 63, CEX7. In the narrative that you say there's a few complaints. Is there a particular area that's getting the complaints? That most of them are resolved, but I just wonder if there's a particular area in the complaints that we're seeing.
Oh, yes, Sally would love to answer that question. Chair.
Thanks, Graham. Yes, we've had an overall rise in complaints, not significant, but it's due to several factors. So I'm hugely proud about the work that the teams have done, not just in our directorate, but across the council, about being really transparent and open and making it easier for residents who are dissatisfied to be able to make a complaint. We've had some specific areas where we might have, for example, there's a national challenge as well as a local challenge around send provision, so that will generate complaints. although they are reducing, we've also had changes to the local ombudsman rules. So if you look at, for the majority of areas across the council, we do really well around early resolution. But the changes through the housing ombudsman mean that we're no longer able to do early resolution. Everything goes into a formal complaints process, which of course means our numbers rise. So that's the key area. But what I can say is in this council we have a really strong complaints team, but also we have a complaints forum. So we have reps dedicated from areas across the organisation who work together, not just about how we answer complaints, but actually the clarity of language we use, and that real kind of openness. So there's a really strong culture of seeing complaints as opportunities to learn. So.
I just wanted to pick up on something on page 48 that was within the service narrative for PG11. And it says ASB have issued 154 fixed penalty notices, and it's an increase attributed to the increase in CCTV monitoring and staffing levels. I just wondered what level of increase is it? Is it a small increase? Is it doubling? Because that's not a figure that you've normally told us about.
We'll have to take the detail back to place and growth to get the specifics. So I was just reading the detail again in the covering report where it references this one, and it talks about that ASB have issued 154 fixed penalty notices, but I haven't got the specific detail that sits underneath that. We'd have to go back to.
I mean, I think we like that kind of detail, but
It's got to be within a
you
context.
give us the context. Yeah.
Yeah, understood.
Rachel.
Super, thank you. With apologies, I'm taking us backwards slightly to what we were discussing on page 63, which is that very often complaints can be a really positive gold standard way of looking at an issue that a resident has, for example. So part of the reason that we have seen an increase is that I know myself personally, in a number of cases where I felt it was appropriate, I have suggested to the resident that they actually do initiate that complaints procedure. I mean, obviously, if we can put things through early resolution, that's often even better. But the complaints procedure can be really useful in some circumstances.
Okay. Keeping you. Oh, Shahid.
Just a comment,
Yeah,
right? Just on top back what you said. Complaints, yes, but do we actually generally receive some suggestions from the residents as well, recommendations, you know, and.
One of the, I'm not quite sure this is covered in our KPIs because this is the HRA, but we know through TLIP that we also receive from tenants, or as we now say, residents living in our own housing stock, not just complaints, but also compliments, and compliments are being recorded. And there are significant numbers of those, appreciation of things done well as obviously complaints about things that are perceived not to be done well. So we do record the compliments as well as the complaints.
I think we should have that as a KPI. Yeah.
It's good to have the compliments. I don't know, just thinking loudly. We got a very talented residents in the Woking Borough, you know, very experienced. And they have a huge wealth of experience as well. So it'd be good to sort of, you know, to hear from them perhaps, you know, anything, challenges which they know, but they can suggest a solution. I know it's difficult and the council might say, look, you haven't adopted it, etc. So I'd seen that. But nevertheless, it could be a very good solution which they have come across because there's a huge wealth of experience. I think we're really privileged to live in this borough with highly talented, educated, residents I'm sure they can add more, value to how the council is being run.
I'm sure you're right, and I think that is something we try to do all the time.
Just to add to Stephen's point, what I don't want to do is spoil ONS on the 5th of November when we are bringing the annual complaints report. So Jackie Whitney will be here as Service Director for Customer and Change, where we'll do that kind of deep dive, look back over the last 12 months, what the learns are. It'll include the compliments in there. And we can also talk about the work we're doing around our resident panel, citizen panel, where we're engaging with residents to get feedback. There's a real opportunity, I think, at that meeting to look in a bit more detail about what those complaints look like, what we, as I've said, what we're learning from them, but also what the next steps are for us. So I just wanted to recognise, and Stephen's absolutely right, we get a significant number of complaints, and I feel like I am going to ruin it a little bit, but just to give an understanding, so we get a significant amount of compliments for housing, for support with SEND, and also with adult social care, but I won't go into much more detail than that because I'll ruin it for Jackie on the 5th of November.
Alison. Nagi.
I have a question from page 61, just around the CEX6. It's about the sickness absence. It seems to be increasing from Q1 of 2024-25 till first quarter of this year. So is there anything we are doing or any measures in place to get that down?
Thank you for the question. Yes, it's something we tend to move around the same sort of figures during all 4 quarters. We do sort of see these changes, but just to sort of talk about some of the work that we've been doing and continue to do. We have the new sickness absence policy that we have recently brought in and working with managers to understand the well-being as well for our staff, because again, it's having it maybe from a more positive perspective and a positive conversation with them with regard to how we can assist and get them, as I say, back to work. But we are still well below the average for days lost. I think it's 8 days. I think it's in the report. 10. It's 10. I apologise. I've got that wrong. It's 10 days. That's probably my own writing as well. But yeah, so the average is 10 days. But it is something that we constantly keep under review.
And just to add to that, if I can, so supporting the organisation's attendance is really important. Louise is right. We are taking about how can we support employees to be in work, recognising that if they're poorly, they are poorly. And part of that, we've got a real focus on health and wellbeing, not just in HR within our directorate, but actually corporately. And we are looking at bringing on board new initiatives that support employees with access to GPs, online, etc., as part of our employee benefits. So we are doing all we can to support our employees to be healthy, to remain healthy, recognising that people do get sick over the period of a year, but making sure that where we can, we absolutely put as much support and wrap that support around our workforce as possible.
Any more on Chief Executives? Alison?
I wanted to ask about on page 55 in the overview from the Chief Executive's office. You've highlighted as top win the community lottery, which obviously doesn't come within any of the KPIs. But is 420 players actually a good result? I mean, what was hoped to have been achieved by the end of July?
Less than that. It's actually exceeded expectations. I'm in a very fortunate position because before this meeting, I was in Community Vision Steering Group meeting where there was a report on the community lottery, and we were benchmarking it compared with other similar lotteries, including the one in Bracknell, which has been going for quite a long time, and ours is outstripping all of those. It's really succeeding well. So this doesn't look like a vast figure at this stage, but things are really, really have taken off. So it is looking very encouraging. And it is giving money to local good causes in a way that's, I think, immensely beneficial to lots of groups, societies, organisations in the borough that can align what they're doing in some way to the aspirations of the community's vision. And nearly all can in some way or another. So a lot of good causes are benefiting. And it's attractive, I think, not least because the percentage of the money raised that actually goes to those causes is much higher than in things like the National Lottery. So I really can't sing the praises of the Community Lottery enough, and it has been a success. I'm quite happy to try and get you some more detailed data on that if you like to have it, Alison. But my recollection of what I've heard about an hour ago is it's going very well indeed.
Stephen, do you remember how much they're contributing?
No, well, of course I don't. I mean, it's a whole hour ago. No, I can't. I wouldn't want to put a figure in the public domain and be proved horribly wrong if I do so. It's much better if I get you those figures. But be assured, you know, the report I received just an hour ago was very, very positive.
Do the big winners accept publicity? I mean, will we see it splashed in the paper?
Say big winners is perhaps giving an impression that might be wrong. These aren't big winners like the National Lottery. They're really modest wins, but they are wins, and they are wins that will help organisations for the most part.
Okay, skip over children's services. If anyone's got anything to pass on. And adult services on page 74. And public health on page 86. Alison.
Public health is now examined in the HOSP meetings as well as adult social care.
Okay, I think we've got to the end. Yeah, everybody happy? Dave?
Just one very quick question. I saw the KPI on reference business rates, Graham, but can you just remind me, what percentage of the business rates do we actually get to keep? It's pretty low percentage, isn't it?
So there's different ways of answering that question. First of all, I would say in totality, our business rates is in the region of 70 million, the total business rates that we collect. And we keep in the region of 16, 17 million at the moment under the fair funding proposal that might not feel very fair. We would keep a lot less going forward. Then there's the question of additionality when we have new businesses enter, and everything else being equal, we get to keep 49% of additional business income, everything else in the calculation being equal. And that's up until a point of redistribution. And this is part of what the fair funding is redistribution. And in this 3-year settlement, it's clear, it's been set out clearly that there will be redistribution of business rates, as in a recalculation across the country in terms of who can keep how much. And that will happen at the end of the 3rd year. So it's been kind of the cadence of every 3 years is being set out. So it makes it very difficult to firstly budget and forecast based on that. But it also feels kind of slightly punitive. You put a lot of work into economic development, business rate stimulation, only to find the benefit of that is no longer yours.
And there's a conception by local businesses that the council keeps all of it, I think. I know it isn't the case, but certainly they think, a lot of business owners think that we keep all of it.
So yes, and understandably so, because we collect it.
Correct, but I'm afraid we don't keep it all. And as Graham said, if these fair funding 2 proposals are not altered, then we'll be keeping a lot less in the future.
Okay, shall we move on to agenda item 42? And I think it's Rachel, you're going to introduce this? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. I'm going to say a few words and then I'm going to hand over to Glyn Davies and to Will Roper, who are very much the experts here, and are going to take us through a presentation on how Woking Borough Council is investing in areas of AI and new technology. And these promise us better ways of serving our residents. This technology can support our staff, free up skilled people from routine work, provide services such as translation, which would be very difficult to match otherwise, and make aspects of our work faster and more reliable. And I was in a meeting today where I heard a very inspiring example from Children's Services about how this means that our social workers can both save time and be more present in vital meetings because of a minute-taking tool. And Glyn has actually got that within the presentation to give you some more details of that. These innovations are very much being designed to be tools for the staff and managed by them. So, for example, where the technology is used to take minutes, a member of staff will then review these to ensure accuracy. So this is here as a support to the officer, not something which replaces their skill and their judgment. And this will help us to make better use of staff skills and to manage the rising demand for many of our services. Wokingham is one of the councils which is actually leading in this country within local government in the use of AI and new technology. And one of the things that's really interesting for me as a councillor is that some of this new technology will make it easier for our residents to find the information that they need when they need it. And I know that I've been very impressed when I've been using chatbots for example, from banking providers, which can provide some very quick answers on frequently asked questions. And it's a massive improvement on kind of being stuck in the automated phone tree hell that you sometimes can be. So let me hand over to Glyn, and Glyn is going to outline all of this and how we work with our community partners to make sure this really works for our residents.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Yes, if everyone hasn't met me, I'm Glyn, Head of Digital Data and Technology here at the Council. And Will, do you want to say who you are?
Hi, everybody. Will Roper, and I'm the Service Manager for Data and Digital Innovation.
Yeah, lovely. So we're going to go through a presentation. The whole point of the presentation is to kind of talk to you about some of the work that we're doing at the moment, some of the learnings that we've sort of found from the work that we're doing, and also some of the next steps and the way ahead, essentially, over the next sort of 6 to 12 months. Well, I think you call me an expert, Rachel, but I'm by no means an expert. So if anyone's got any kind of ideas or sort of feedback, we're more than happy to sort of hear it. And it's ever changing. So like, yeah, the landscape's moving all the time. So the first bit that we want to sort of talk to you is mainly around the sort of the strategic context. So this is kind of what's happening sort of nationally. So I'm sure everyone's using AI without knowing it in their kind of their personal lives. And, you know, like you said, Rachel, when you're kind of contacting a bank or your telephone company. But the Prime Minister has got this sort of new model for kind of local government, which they're looking to kind of launch from a digital perspective. And that is kind of built on kind of the foundations of using AI and emerging technology. So things like automation and web services and things like that. So we've been really lucky here. So we've been part of what they call the incubator for AI. So that's with a couple of other councils around the country. And what that's enabled us to do is to try out some of the tools that are coming out of central government, that are used by central government, and to see how they could maybe help here in the local government context. So the Minute tool that Rachel talked about a minute ago, that's one of the things that we've been sort of trialling here. I'm not going to say everything's perfect. A lot of this is kind of fail fast. That's where we're sort of testing it, trying it, seeing if it works and whether it's worth investing in and on an ongoing basis, essentially. So forefront, is the forefront a strong word? I'd say there's more we can do. There's absolutely more we can do here in this space, and it's something that we're looking to do over the coming months and years moving forward. And really it is a tool there to kind of help our workforce. You know, like our demands as officers are ever increasing, and it will help us to respond to the residents' needs and hopefully make our services better for the residents as well moving forward. Having said that, one of the things that we do need to think about when we're talking about AI, and I'm going to hand over to Will now, is governance and guardrails. So we'd all like to do what we want all the time, but I'm afraid that's not the way we can kind of work in local government. Some of the data we got and the information we hold on people is really sensitive, so we need to kind of make sure we kind of guard it with purpose, essentially. Will?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So AI governance and ethics is obviously vital to make sure that we use AI in an ethical way, that data that's put into it is protected, and that only the data that should be put into an AI tool is ever put into an AI tool. And also going back to the earlier point that AI is used as a tool to support decision making and never abdicate decision making to a machine. So there have been a number of steps that have been taken over the last few months to make sure that we've got the AI governance and the ethical approach. So both elements have been incorporated into the terms of reference of the Digital Information Governance Group. So that's a group chaired by Andrew Moulton as the CIRO, attended by all of the information asset owners within the council, and then there are representatives from kind of the expert groups in data and DDAT. So AI and governance has been incorporated into their terms of reference, so they're looking at those. We've produced a new AI policy, and that was approved and issued out in spring of this year. Currently, we have a new AI e-learning module in development, and there is a key work stream within the within the innovation programme, which aims to make sure that our governance and ethics keeps pace with the development of the technology and the tools we deploy into the organisation.
So what I'd add to that is, like, AI is not right for every situation. So, you know, there are times when absolutely you shouldn't be deploying sort of technology, and that's what we need to sort of think about from an ethical point of view as well. And that's why we've been doing a lot of work with children's services, essentially, to look at, I suppose, what kind of would be the right sort of fit in terms of a technology sort of set moving forward. Also, one of the things, it wouldn't be us coming to here now to talk to you about cyber. So actually AI does actually introduce a cyber risk here to us at the council. So that's really why it's important that when we're kind of looking at these tools, we're making sure they're sort of fit for purpose for us to be using here within the council's offices and councillors. So I'm just going to talk to you now about some case studies and some things that we've been doing over the last 6 months here, here within the council. So the first one is a translation service. So this is essentially where you can take a paper document or electronic document, and you can translate it into any language that you want. So this is something that's been used within housing, essentially, particularly within the Hong Kong community. So they were paying for translation services, essentially, to translate these documents. So we've got this tool that we've used. And we, you know, we kind of used it on a trial basis. They loved it. It kind of helped to kind of speed up the sort of the translation process, as well as kind of helping them to kind of release budget to spend on vital sort of frontline services. Such is the pace that this kind of moves at. No sooner as we kind of like, we're about to go live with it, a free version, well, not free, it's part of our Microsoft tool set, because we're paying Microsoft a lot of money, but they actually developed something. So we've actually learned from that, and we've moved quickly over to the Microsoft version. So that's something we're using here at the council. Minute taking as well. So we were lucky to be part of this Incubator for AI programme by central government. So we've been trialling a minute-taking tool essentially used by their cabinet ministers. So our philosophy is if it's good enough for the government secrets, then it should be good enough for the local government secrets, essentially. So that's been really transformative, and we've got a case study that we want to sort of talk to you about later within children's services, where it's sort of freed up loads of officer time to kind of spend with their kind of families. But also we're finding no sooner as we've kind of gone live with that, Microsoft have brought in a transcription tool. There's a bit of a theme here that this is, you know, as soon as we're kind of trialing things out, the big companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they're developing kind of things essentially that can kind of come along, replace things. Subject access requests, this is something that we've invested in, is some technology that essentially when they're doing subject access requests, there's a huge amount of information that kind of gets gathered, it kind of gets put into this system, and before this, someone had to manually go through and redact any sensitive information out, which is a huge amount of officer time. This technology that we've got now kind of does that automatically. So the officer always gets a chance to accept or reject the kind of like the suggestions, but it basically speeds up the process for doing subject access requests. And why that's really important for us is that we have a timeline that we have to hit with subject access requests. If we kind of fall the wrong side of that, we're subject to a fine. So actually it's good cost prevention, you know, having a tool like that. That's a tool that we're not unique in using. It's something that Hackney are using as well. So they've been really great support to us in terms of adopting that technology. So that's showing how we're working with our wider networks. Also our contact centre solutions. So we're in the middle of an upgrade at the moment for Netcall, which is our telephony provider for our contact centre, which will give us access to technologies around voice automation. So when someone's phoning up, they go through like a call system, essentially, push 1 for revs and bends, push 2 for adult social care. They'll still be able to do that, but they'll also be able to do it with their voice by asking questions to it, and then it will kind of direct them through to the right agent, essentially, throughout the council. Also, we can train it to kind of give responses back. So actually, people can ask a question to it and it will kind of direct a response back to them. So it helps with our kind of channel shift and moving to that sort of digital era, but also enabling people to like speak to someone still if they want to speak to someone. And then the last one is Henry. So Henry is a HR agent or chatbot that we've got here at the council that we're about to launch, where essentially within Microsoft Teams, people will be able to ask it, like they would do a colleague, HR kind of questions. So like, how much leave do I get? What's the HR policy around this? It's been so good that when we kind of demoed it at the colleague conference we had recently, our list of requests for chatbots for council services is probably into double figures. So we've got one that we're looking at for IT at the moment, but one we're looking at as well is for the Constitution. So having a chatbot that sits over the Constitution that you can ask it kind of questions, essentially. So that's something we're developing at the moment. So those are some things we've been doing over the last sort of 6 months, but there's more work to do, and we'll talk about that moving forward. I'm going to hand over to Will, who you're going to talk about the impact it's had on children's services.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Glenn just mentioned, we trialled the Minute tool with children's services. There are a lot of words in here, but I just thought I'd pick out a few key points. So children's services is the most regulated part of the council. This means that there's a really significant recording burden. And we've been able to get some feedback from a couple of heads of service within children's services. So one of them has reported back that the use of AI in the Minute tool was a game changer. And they described that a task that would ordinarily have taken 10 hours to complete had been reduced to a 5-hour task. So it's still quite a long task, but it's a significantly shorter task than it was before. The second head of services talks about supervision. So they achieved a 93% supervisions completed within timescales in August. That was hugely supported by the use of AI. And also they noted that the supervision notes that were produced as part of that process were far more comprehensive as a result. So the early kind of insights from the work suggests that we've got improved oversight, improved planning and quality relational interventions, and that most importantly, that's had a positive impact on the outcomes for the children involved.
Thanks, Will. So before we kind of look at the future, we're going to talk a little bit about what we've learned. So this won't be music to Graham's ears, but what we've learned is that cutting edge technology is expensive. You know, this is a way of kind of the tech companies making some money on the clever tech that they're sort of developing. So if it's something that we're going to take on here at the council, it is going to cost us money to do it, but you know, it needs to be like a seesaw where we're paying in one area and it should give a benefit in another, essentially. So that's something we need to consider, and we'll talk about on a slide later on. One of the things we've learned, and we talked about it earlier, around the proof of concepts we're doing, we did a lot of work around looking at niche systems and niche things to kind of for certain examples. But actually what we've learned is we're better off narrow framing and working with a couple of technology providers to deliver everything. So most people here would have heard of Microsoft Copilot. So Copilot is Microsoft's ecosystem for AI. It means something different to lots of different people. So essentially, we believe that that's a technology set we should be looking to exploit here at the council, because it's something that our staff, our residents, and you as councillors probably will understand, because you're using Microsoft every day in your life. And it's also what they call an evergreen technology. So you pay a subscription fee and are constantly developing new tools and making them better as well. So having a strong working relationship with Microsoft is something that we see as key moving forward here for Woking Borough Council. Also, I think one of the things that we've learned around is not being frightened to fail. Sometimes things just don't work, and actually there's no point sort of flogging a lame horse, essentially. If it's not working out, we need to kind of not be too proud, and we need to kind of bail out on it at the right time, essentially. And one of the things that we need to sort of talk about is, you know, our officers, and actually AI, emerging technology, it's not something for us in the IT industry, it's something for everyone across the council. You know, it's part of everyone's kind of job, and kind of raising the kind of people's awareness of it across the council is key, because like I said at the start, we don't have all the ideas here in IT. People in children's services might, so we want people to kind of come to us with those ideas for us to look at them. Will, I'm going to pass over to you, and you're going to talk about our approach.
Yeah, so the trials and the learnings that we just talked about kind of drive us towards this three-pronged approach that we've developed. So the first thing is to maximise the effectiveness of our existing suppliers. So the kind of technical phrase would be to maximise our existing stack. So what we want to avoid doing is adding in piecemeal tools from other suppliers when we could use the systems that we have within the organisation already, because every time we add something in, we add complexity, we add maintenance costs, we need to train officers to maintain and update systems and all those kind of things. So work with our existing suppliers to maximise what we've got within the organisation already, deploy their new capabilities as they come along, and make sure we maximise the value of the things we're already spending money on, so Copilot, for example. We then want to make sure that we work in conjunction with the productivity programme to make sure that we're focusing on areas that need our support the most, and that we identify future opportunities to integrate new technology and build on our capability. And then finally, and this comes back to the point about people are really, you know, the most important element of this. We want to make sure that we drive a culture within the organisation where we look to innovate, use new technology, and reach for technology rapidly across the organisation.
Lovely. One of the things we should have said as well is we've sort of mentioned sort of Microsoft, but we've got lots of other kind of partners that we're kind of working with here at the council. One being our CRM, so our customer resource management system, Netcall, who also do our telephony. The upgrade we've got getting through them is going to give us access to a load of sort of technology sets, essentially, for us to kind of exploit. So it's how we kind of blend and complement those sort of technology sets that we'll be kind of looking at as well moving forward. And with these things, it's about maximising our investments. So if we've paid money for a kind of a licence, we should be looking to maximise that licence before we start investing in something else, because someone likes the look of something that can do something really well in another area, essentially. So in terms of our approach to kind of business case, so at the moment we've got MTFP funding, which is like seed funding to run these pilots and these proof of concepts. Because we're trialling things out and we've kind of got things in operational use, doesn't mean they're things that we're going to be using on an ongoing basis. So as we're kind of getting to the end of each pilot, we have to develop a business case essentially for further funding essentially. So we've talked lots about sort of co-pilot, so we're going to be doing a wider co-pilot adoption across the council. That might be right for a year, but actually the business case might not stack up in year 2, so we will have to sort of scale back down essentially. So that's something that we're working through at the moment with our business change colleagues on a process point of view. But before we even going to get to a business case and a proof of concept, the first thing we ask ourselves is, have we got something that can do it already? So if someone comes to us, say in children's services, and says, I really want a tool that can kind of help me with this process. Our first question is, what have we got at the moment we're paying for that we can make the most of, so we can kind of sweat the asset? That's our first sort of hurdle that we kind of got to get through. And we have a technical design authority that meets on a bi-weekly basis to kind of look at that and act as a gatekeeper essentially. Also, I said earlier about kind of not being afraid to kind of fail. So testing and learning and exploring new technology, that's very much part of the pilot phase. But we need to use that information that we kind of gathered through the pilot to kind of feed into the business case moving forward. So yeah, so business cases are really sort of key. So I suppose what I'm saying here is that we're not going to be sort of flippant with the council's money, essentially, moving forward. We'd love to have all the sort of shiny toys that we've kind of get our hands on, because that's the nature of our job in IT, but it needs to be sustainable in the long run. So that's working with the services to kind of prove that sustainability. I don't know if you've got anything you would like to add in on that one, Sally? Yep.
So Glyn's absolutely right. It's really important for us to be innovative, but to make conscious decisions. So part of what we're doing through the Glyn's World, the DDAT team, the Digital Data and Technology team, is making sure that we test and learn. So we don't just test and learn ourselves, but we learn from our network. So we're working with local authorities who are perhaps further on this journey and start to make sure that we invest our time carefully. It's really important for us in an area that is changing so rapidly from a technology point of view that we don't limit our learning to the public sector, but we also work with the private sector to see what they're doing so that we can factor that into our thinking. But Glyn's absolutely right. We are absolutely mindful of the fact that new technology, as we've said, has a price tag, so it's really important that we sweat our assets, make the most of those license costs that we're already paying for, but we build business cases post-pilot where we see those benefits that will come out of those initial pilots, to make sure that we've got the confidence as the technology team, but we've also got the confidence from a financial perspective that those investments are measured and managed. The other thing I would add as well is it's really important, and Glyn's right, that we can put the best technology out in the world, but if we don't bring our workforce with us, it will be money wasted. So a huge part of the programme linked to AI, which I'm sponsor for, is making sure that we've got that dedicated investment and focus on bringing the workforce skills to the level that we need to have in relation to make sure that these changes stick. And I think the other aspect, as Glyn mentioned, is that we understand that, I say we, royally, understand the technology to a level that we've never understood before, because it's all new, but we're investing in learning. But the other point is making sure that our customers, which is obviously the rest of the organisation, are the ones who feel empowered to be able to say, we've seen this here, we've got this idea, could we do this? So there's a huge amount of work in the background that we're doing to make sure that people in children's, adults, planning, etc., are able to bring their ideas to the DDAT service to be able to be kind of part of the ecosystem of developing new ways of working in a scale of change that I've not seen in my background of IT. And I think Graham might want to come in.
I was just going to add, in this very exciting territory, there's a temptation to want to be at the very leading edge, and I've seen this presentation before from Glenn and Will, and the expectation is not to be right at the front because that's high risk, high cost. It's be towards the front, but be able to learn from others that have walked down and tested and taken the risk and have the bruises. That is the optimum place to be. So I would, that's just behind the crest of the wave, as Stephen just whispered in my ear. Yes.
We would say leading edge, not bleeding edge, because bleeding edge is where you get the cuts. So.
Lovely. So yeah, just to summarise, and then give you guys an opportunity to kind of ask questions that you might have. Our kind of takeaways are that we're kind of going to be working with our suppliers, at a greater level than what we've done in the past, because they've got greater intelligence in certain areas than us, kind of bluntly, as well as also working with the different directorates on their sort of priorities. So we don't want to be knocking at their door, essentially saying, we've seen this, we think you should use it. We want it to be the reverse, them coming to us, telling us about their problems so that we can help to sort of find solutions to them. And not every solution is going to be technology. It could be something completely different than technology. So that's why it's important. We're working really well with our business change team, because they can kind of pick up on that from a process point of view. Digital stock take, so we've got a lot of stuff here at the council, so making sure that we've got a full itinerary of like our capability from a digital point of view. So that's something that we kind of need to make sure that we've got in place. We've got a proper asset register with all of the capabilities of our technology sets, so that when someone comes to us, we can kind of use it as a bit of a encyclopedia, essentially, to kind of look up whether it can do it or can't do it. And I've talked about Copilot and Netcall. So moving forward, so within our Microsoft licensing at the moment, we get access to something that Microsoft called the free Copilot. It isn't free because we see the bill that we're paying. It's built into the Microsoft licensing, but it's something that everyone, including councillors, can use who've got a WBC account. So we're going to be doing a kind of a council-wide kind of comms and adoption programme before Christmas to teach people about that, essentially, and so they can kind of go and use it. And then there's the premium Copilot, which you have to pay more money for, that we're going to be looking to do a wider adoption of that across the council, which will give officers access to things like the translation tool within minutes, the generative AI tools within the kind of Teams and Word and things like that. So when I say generative AI, that's where you ask it a question, it generates a document or generates an image, essentially, for you. Also Netcall. So Netcall's a tool set that we've invested in here at the council. So maximising the scope of that. So where we can get as much of our kind of application estate running through Netcall as possible. That will help us to kind of like reduce those costs that Will sort of talked around our sort of technology ecosystem, as well as the tools it's going to give around to our customer service agents around voice automation, kind of real-time sort of translation with people on the phone, and kind of video calls and things like that. So that's the end of the presentation. We're happy to take any questions.
I'll just say before we get started on the questions, this is very much overview rather than scrutiny. This is really, really the very beginning look at this. So, sorry, just should have said it before, perhaps. I think Sally wanted to say something else. So.
Thank you, Chair. You've definitely covered the first part. So I think people who have been coming to overview and scrutiny for a while will be thinking, well, we haven't seen IT in this room on a number of occasions. So part of the work that we've done is a directorate working with Catherine as chair, is to bring forward items like this, because I think it's really helpful for us to shine a light on some of the services in the back office. I don't like to use that term, but those people who are supporting those closest to the customer. And we will continue to bring more things through to overview like this, so we can start to have that understanding of what's happening from a technology perspective. I think that's really important to an overview and scrutiny meeting. I think the other aspect for us, as Glyn and Will have both covered fantastically well tonight, is we want to learn, and we've talked about learning from our residents, we've talked about learning from the private sector, we've talked about learning from our partners within the local government and central government sector, but it's really important as well we get the opportunity to learn from councillors. We recognise that a lot of councillors will work in their professional careers with AI. So that, again, part of us bringing the paper this evening, or the slide deck this evening, is to say this is what we're doing for us. What have we not thought about? What are those opportunities for us?
Thanks, Sally. I think Beth was... Oh, sorry, Stephen, hang on a minute.
Just before
Stephen
the
wants to say
questions
something.
are asked, it's really just to kind of reinforce the point that this is all part of our effort to try and enable overview and scrutiny to have a chance to be involved in the overview and not just the scrutiny. So at an early stage, you get the chance to have an input and help things develop in directions that are going to be helpful for the council. So this is part of the ambition to try and give councillors of all parties the opportunity to have a meaningful input into things at an early enough stage to make a difference.
Okay, Beth.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a couple of points, if I may. And I think AI is the way that we are going. And I think the overview part of overview and scrutiny is a very useful tool for all of us to look at not only AI, but other things that we're developing as a council. My second point is, remember that not all of us are very good at AI. My third point is, I am no good at AI at all, because I made a birthday invitation this morning. I've got a significant birthday coming up, but I couldn't attach it to WhatsApp. Would you like to come round for coffee in the morning?
My out of hours rate's quite high. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure that that's the kind of contribution to development policy I was thinking of.
Okay, I think Nagy is next.
Just in response, we absolutely, in response to Beth's comment about not everybody wants to or can use AI, that is absolutely at the forefront of the development of what we do. So again, the programme, Will and Glyn will be linking in with our digital adoption team. So that's working with our colleagues in libraries who support people to be able to gain new skills, but also making sure that those processes where people can't use technology are available. We absolutely are conscious of the fact that not everybody can use this new technology, but where we can and where they want to, we should be making it as easy as possible for people to do that. But it's accessibility and access to services is not forgotten. I think that's one of the benefits of having customer services and IT in the same directorate. You can't lose sight of one for the other. So.
Do you want to say something? No. Okay, good. My question is on similar lines to Beth. So how are we encouraging council colleagues to this change, or any training practices? I have 3 questions. This is the first one.
I think so. One of the things that we have this thing here they call the digital champions. So this is people around the council who are interested essentially in technology and IT. So when we're sort of trialing these things out, we use the digital champions essentially because they're interested in it, and then they kind of go and evangelise about it within their kind of service area, and they can also help their service area. So particularly not with AI and automation, things like that, but like Microsoft 365, the network of champions are within like highways. So if someone's got a highways office has got an issue with like Word or Teams, they can go to their colleague who's a champion who's had advanced training in it to kind of help upskill them essentially. In terms of AI, Will said we've got an e-learning module that we're developing at the moment, which will be for staff to use, but also, like I talked, it's about having an adoption program essentially. So one of the things in technology, we're really good at buying things. We're not necessarily so good at investing in the adoption side of things. And actually that needs to be kind of thought of as the project. So like the webinar we're going to do for the Microsoft Copilot chat, that's for all staff. That'll be recorded, available, probably available for counsellors as well if they want to kind of see it. We don't want to operate in secret. But yeah, we probably, it's just looking at our manpower essentially. So we've got adoption officers, but we've only got 1 or 2 of them. So it's just using them, you know, wherever we can, you know, sparsely essentially. That was 1 of 3, wasn't it? You've got.
Thanks for that. And with usually tools like this, the subscription charge goes up and up. So how are we going to manage it? I know it's not in our hands, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't want to keep talking about Microsoft, but they're probably the best example. So we essentially go into something called an enterprise agreement with Microsoft, which is a 4-year period. So we agree a price with Microsoft for their tools at the start of the 4 years, and then over that 4-year period they can't put their prices up, and that's a price that's been agreed through Crown Commercial Services, which is part of central government. However, at the end of the 4 years there is always a price increase. So what we're privy to is we're 2.5 years through our enterprise agreement at the moment. We can see what our other kind of counterparts who are coming to the end of their term at the moment are going to be paying. So we can kind of predict what's going to be happening. So you'll probably see through like the MTFP process, we put bids in essentially for growth. So it's never too much of a surprise. We tend to know about a year out what the kind of cost increase is going to look like. And then our other kind of suppliers, where we're in contracts, it's normally linked to kind of CPI, so consumer price index, or we've got a locked price essentially for the term of the contract. Sadly, though, the cost is always going to go up. These things are never going to get cheaper. It's going to go up and up and up, I think, moving forward.
Yeah, that's fine. At least we have that 1-year period to reevaluate our options if need be. The last question is, like yesterday, the Amazon Web Services has gone down, especially within our public and, you know, customer focused, a lot of customer focus. So are there any fallback options wherever we are implementing these AI tools?
Do you want me to take that?
I'll take the first bit. I think the issues that Amazon Web Services had yesterday should be a marker for all of us, because nobody is immune to if you have major systems that have, or major suppliers that have major outages. There is always an element of risk in technology, as you would expect. And Glyn referenced the cyber landscape is changing all the time. So what we do is recognise that if something as significant as Microsoft went down, and we also use AWS to an extent, that we need to make sure that the organisation is ready to be able to respond if technology wasn't available. So there's a huge focus around, for us, emergency planning. So what does that look like if you lose technology? Because we recognise that in a national outage, Wokingham is just one customer of hundreds, if not thousands, across the organisation. So we are doing a joint piece of work between myself and Giorgio from Alico, where we are sponsoring together an emergency response to technology outage, that we have those real robust business continuity plans that talks about how the authority would respond. And I think that's the right thing for us as a responsible, critical part of the local infrastructure. You'd expect us to do that. So that's how we plan for that.
Just a small bit. So within the NHS, we have something similar, 724 we call it. So if you need anything, let me know. I can share some pictures.
Caroline.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, it's just a couple of questions. You touched on failures. Have there been any failures in the system so far? And secondly, are you talking to Reading University as one of their partners? Because I understand their IT is very good, having been to the talk on it. Thank you.
Have we spoken to Reading University? We haven't, but we're planning to, because they're one of our strategic partners, essentially, to kind of learn from them. We have kind of got contacts who kind of are working there. Have there been any failures? I think we've had, I'm not going to call them failures because the technology worked, but I think the business case and the benefits it we're going to deliver outweighed the technical use, essentially. So, and we've had to pivot, essentially, look at different alternatives, essentially. So we haven't had any kind of technical failures, but we probably have had some sort of failures where we've allowed ourselves to kind of go down a bit further than I'd like to have done to the business case phase, to kind of realise that it was not going to work out from a financial point of view. And in terms of technology, things fail and break all the time. So, yeah, there will be plenty, I'm sure, moving forward.
Glyn's absolutely right. So people will be aware that IT is my background, and fail fast, fail quick is actually part of our approach. We shouldn't, as Glyn said during the presentation, we shouldn't be frightened of where we try something, it doesn't work, as long as we are confident and cognizant to recognise that failure, as Glyn said, and be able to go, right, we're going to move on. That is part and parcel, I think, of working in technology. I think for us, the big point that we are making sure that we incorporate into our approach, not just to AI and emerging technology, but across technology across the board, is that we learn from when things go wrong. Because also you have failures where we have system outage, like we talked yesterday about AWS being down. Actually, we can learn from that, what processes didn't work, where did we not have business continuity, for example, that might have caused us a problem. So every outage, a bit like a complaint, is an opportunity for us to learn even more and become even more resilient.
I've got a couple of questions, but I'm going to let Shahid go first.
Thank you, Chair. Glenn, Bill, thank you for the presentation. I think it was really useful. Will and Sally knows that this is a subject which is also I'm very much interested in as well. So much so that actually last week I was in Dubai for 5 days, and they have the biggest tech event in the world, where 180 countries are represented, also Britain as well. 6,500 exhibitors, and 250,000 people actually attended, and the word was AI everywhere, right? And AI agents were being developed for every single thing you can think of. But the question is always everybody's asking is, what is a user case for AI, which you highlighted? The technology is not for the sake of it, but what are the benefits we're going to get as a result of that? And even investors are asking the same question as well. And this is a question I'm sure you highlighted as well. As an organization, we need to ask is, if we're going to do this, in particular this area, what tangible benefits will the company WBC will get, or what tangible benefits will our community, our residents will get? And then obviously it has to be a strong user case for that. I mean, just a couple of observations as well. 1 minute taking, for example, you mentioned 50%. This is something actually I have implemented in my organization as well. And we got a 70% benefit actually as a result of that. Huge savings in terms of time. And obviously time is a saving as well, cost. So efficiency savings, we made 70% of that. So that's really good. But I'm just thinking, right, in terms of the more than the efficiency aspect, yes, organization, how will we measure the benefits of AI for the wider community, for the residents?
Before Will answers that, can I just say, I think that 50% only referred to a very specific example in children's services, where currently the burden of recording is very, very high, because this is obviously an immensely sensitive area. Everything has to be recorded, and recorded very thoroughly and accurately. So I think Will was saying it's a 10-hour job has been reduced to 5 hours. that's the 50%. But in other areas, the saving could be much greater. But there's an irreducible minimum, I'm afraid, with the children's services recording, because so much data has to be there, and then it obviously has to be checked and gone through, which will take time.
I fully get that. The example which I was giving was the adult social care, which we have used, where, just give an example, well, everything is recorded, converted into text, and the document is ready to be uploaded, right? So otherwise, so it's a better engagement. Just give you an example, a better engagement with the client. But obviously, you don't have to note, somebody doesn't have to take notes. You can actually engage with the residents much better as well, as a result. And then that converts into a document, and then documents can be uploaded. So 80%, I would say, the work is done. This is our observation, right? So I get that, obviously, from that point of view. What I'm saying is just supporting what Will was saying, that there's a huge benefit in that particular area.
I think that's actually something we're trialling, I think, in the coming weeks, isn't it? Is having like this facilitating tool, essentially, where basically a social worker could, I've got to be careful I'm not speaking out of turn, but an officer could put their phone in the middle of a meeting, or they could put their laptop in the middle of the meeting, and it will facilitate and take notes, and then you can basically get it to transcribe it. It goes into like a preset template, essentially. So you might have a template that you have to fill that gets loaded into a case management system. The tool will kind of do that. Is it going to get it perfect all of the time? Probably not, but that's why you need the human there to kind of check it and edit it, and that's always going to kind of sort of take time. In terms of, because quite a lot to unpack in what you were sort of saying, in terms of use cases, I think this is where 6 months ago, maybe longer than that, lots of people around the council, Sally included, were going, I want to do AI, I want to make use of AI. And we were like, well, what do you want to do? Because AI is a lot of things, isn't it? So actually tell us what your problems are, and we will help you find a solution. And it's not actually all AI, could be technology, essentially. So some of the things we talked about here tonight, they were not AI tools, they're just new technologies that we've got access to or we can use. In terms of the benefits, I'd say that's where we kind of have to work with our change team to make sure that they're kind of adopted, where we've kind of adopted something or we've run a project, the benefits are then realised off the back of the project, because we don't do that from a project perspective. That's very much the sort of change discipline from a change management point of view, and making sure that when we're doing the business case, we're being sort of transparent about what the benefits we expect to get from the technology set. Sometimes that's quite difficult, to do and quite sort of hard, but that's something we kind of need to sort of think about moving forward. Looks like you want to say something.
Lynn's right. Being able to look at benefits to the community, being able to have a tool around AI translation is fantastic for us. It's good for us because we're not having to pay for expensive translation tool, and it's good for our residents because there's access to information that previously would have taken us time. Glyn referenced Netcall, and he will tell me if I get this wrong, but that real-time translation, so if someone contacts our contact centre and they are speaking in French, it will translate that. If they write to us in French, it will translate that, and when we write back, it will write back in French. So those kind of skill sets to be able to support our community, I think, are really, really important. In relation to benefit, sometimes they are financial and sometimes they are not. And it's really important for us where they are financial benefits that we've agreed those up front with the relevant directorates, but also we recognise where we're able to deliver what will be, no doubt, a difficult medium-term financial plan, and supporting directorates to do that, but also recognising where we can contribute to the suppression of growth. So we talked tonight about Graham articulated really well about the pressures on high demand areas like adults, children's and housing. For us, it is about how do we leverage technology to be able to support our directors and their teams to be able to manage this ever increasing complex demand that is coming through our doors. This isn't ever going to be a silver bullet. We see AI and emerging technology as part of a solution, not the solution, as part of our direction and the way forwards, I would say. There's a question online.
Yeah, Bassett has a question online. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, you
I
haven't
was.
finished. Okay, Bassett, wait a minute.
Okay, sorry.
Other one I was thinking was, how do you make sure that the AI ethics and governance framework remains current and transparent?
So Will talked about, so Andrew Moulton, so we have work streams within our AI and emerging tech program. So Andrew's got a dedicated work stream on ethics and governance, essentially. So we have this thing called the Data and Information Governance Group, which sounds really exciting, and it is for those who are part of it. So we meet on a 6-weekly basis, is it? Yeah. And essentially any new AI tech that we're looking to kind of go live with has to go through that board, essentially, which Andrew chairs, and it's got representation from all directorates across the council. Also, I haven't got the details today, but central government, when we're kind of using AI tools, there's like a register we have to kind of put our tools on, because we're a public service, essentially. So that's why it's really critical that we're kind of assessing and we're vetting tools. So quite a lot of the time we get officers say, I've seen this thing, or my kid's using this thing at home, can I use it here at work? And it's like, yeah, it's a really nice tool, but no, you can't, because it's sending the data off to North Korea or somewhere like that. So that's why we've, I probably couldn't have said that. So yeah, sorry. So it's just making sure we're kind of vetting things. I don't know, are we going to get it right all the time? We might make a mistake along the line, but we're having those guardrails is super important to us. So yeah, but the ethics side of things is very much a service thing rather than a technology thing. So that's why Andrew's sort of chairing that as the kind of lead for that across the council. Sally?
But you are absolutely right, ethics is key for this. And again, it's about how are we learning from others who are doing this or have trodden this path before us. But it was really important for us, certainly for myself and Glyn, to make sure that we weren't marking our own homework, so that I wasn't the one who was saying everything's great in IT, because that would be wrong, which is why we've brought Andrew in as the monitoring officer, but also as the senior information risk officer for the council and the data protection officer. He has lots of titles, to make sure that we have that independence around the responsibility to work with us, but also to work with services like adults, children's, etc., where that data is extremely sensitive. So it's important for us that we are not poacher and gamekeeper, I would say.
Sorry, Chair, just two more, and that's it. Generally, it's estimated that AI, obviously, the work which you're doing, will have implications on the jobs as well. And the process is up to 40%. They're saying that the jobs currently can be replaced by AI, ultimately when the work is complete. So any indication for cause you think this can have an impact on the staff in the near or the long future?
Thanks for the question. I think for us, in local government, we would look at what's happening in the private sector, because they've been investing a heck of a lot more money in AI and emerging technology than we have. And I don't think we aren't seeing some of the anecdotal facts around 40% of mass redundancies across the UK or America linked to emerging technologies. Now, that doesn't mean that we go into this with our eyes closed. For us, it's about how do we recognise where we have processes that are manual and repetitive, and start to use AI to be able to support that, and also to be able to give officers opportunities to work on more interesting, complex contacts or pieces of work across the organisation. So I guess I would end as I started, which said we will look and keep monitoring what's happening in the private sector, because we will without a doubt see that ripple into the public sector. But I think there's been quite a lot of scaremongering nationally, globally, that I haven't actually seen turn into the reality of there isn't a lawyer, for example, which was one of the things that came out earlier in the year. So yeah.
This isn't controversial at all, but I think everyone's going to be worried now if I've said that, aren't they? I promise it's not. But think about, we don't know what the future holds. Jobs will change, won't they? Society evolves. So there will be jobs in probably 10 years' time that none of us have ever kind of dreamed about. You know, like in the Industrial Revolution, like when everyone's using like the fabric looms and things like that. When that all kind of changed, those people kind of moved on to kind of other sort of industries. So the technology will be, I think the technology roles will kind of grow, I think, and we'll see an expansion of that. That's just my personal view. I think it's quite an exciting time to be a member of the workforce, essentially.
Sorry, can I just add, say the phrase that was used by the chairman of Microsoft is that, you know, you won't lose your job to AI. What you need to be able to do is work with AI. And that's the critical tool. And I think that's why the work that, you know, the work stream, which is all around culture and equipping, making sure our officers are equipped to embrace the tools as they develop, is really important.
Yeah, I didn't mean to be, it's not alarming, right? So obviously there's a huge debate going on. But the question is, do you see this as an opportunity or do you see it as a threat, right? And this is a question, but I think you're absolutely right. It's an aid, which helps us to make better decisions and efficiencies and effectiveness. Just last one. One thing we find in the council is that it's very difficult to find documents and things, right? Are we thinking of maybe creating chatbots which can, across the council, for example, different, it becomes easier not only for the residents but also the councillors as well to find things, right? Because historically it's so difficult to get, find stuff.
There's probably two parts of that. I'd say things are hard to find because we keep hold of a lot of old legacy documents, so having data retention is probably really, really key. But also some of the tools, I feel like a broken record, but like the search in Copilot, if people have used it, you can ask it a question, has Sally Watkins ever sent me a document or an email about this? And it comes back and finds the documents, and it finds, but the danger there is if it exists on the system, it will find it. And that's why it's really important that we've kind of got those guardrails, because if you open up this technology and give it the keys to your whole of your IT estate, it will find an answer essentially. So there's probably two bits there that we kind of need to sort of think about. I think the kind of the data retention, and then I suppose like the adoption sort of side of things as well.
Okay, Bassett, you're on.
Yeah, so it's a really good discussion, and I lead digital transformation in the private sector, so I know what's happening in that area at the national level, and I'm involved with different international forums. So Glenn, I really liked the point you mentioned, and I took the picture by the way as well. Drive a culture of innovation and rapid adoption. You're spot on from that perspective. And your translation could be your first use case for AI, by the way. It's really good. I think your team has done a great job in that. When it comes to AI, there are four main areas. One is operational efficiency and cost saving, which I think mainly, as of now, the presentation which Glenn presented covers mainly around the operational efficiency, improving processes, and at the same time, enhancing customer experience, like reducing timelines. And I think Sally or someone was mentioning about the Power BI dashboard, so that's another good thing. We also need to take into account all these initiatives would help in improved decision making as well. We would have more data, the better data, and better analytics. And this data driven operation would help to do prediction in a more effective way for decision making from the council perspective. And the last thing is when we have this more in place, it would help in revenue growth and innovation as well. So I would say there is a debate, not in this meeting, but there are two school of thoughts. Technology always bring new ways of working, as Glenn mentioned. The people who adopt to technology, it's assistive and enabler. It's not like replacing humans. In some cases, would like AI to take things same way. Few decades ago, calculator took some of the stuff. Same way, it's another assistive technology. So governance is important. And Glenn, I would like to know more about governance and ethics. Perhaps I'll take this offline with you. Great work. I really like the slides you prepared. Well done.
Thank you, Bassett. I think, yeah, probably not, we'd want maybe Andrew Moulton to be included from a governance point of view, so we can kind of have that sort of shared ownership. But yeah, we can absolutely bring that back or pick it up offline, Bassett, with you. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
That is a good use case of ChatGPT there. Now, my last question is, we have a lot of residents coming to the council office with lots of questions. Either it is with a council home or parking permit or something or the other. So is there something within our website? I know there's a lot of information on our website. Is there something where I go to the chat box and say, I want to apply for a council home. This is my situation. What documents do I need to take to the council office, or what is the process?
So there isn't something at the moment. However, we've got a web chat bot on there at the moment, which is kind of pretty basic. I think you can ask it like, when's my bin day, and then it kind of sends you to the relevant area of the website. The upgrade we're doing to our Netcall system essentially will give us access to a web chatbot essentially, where we can train it basically to look at all the content of our website, and people can kind of use natural language to ask it kind of questions. I'm going to say that's probably something that's going to take us several months, I suppose, to kind of test, roll out, because what we wouldn't want to do is turn something on, which is really, really quick, and then someone asks a question of it, and it kind of gives someone like a wrong answer back. That also goes back to making sure that the information we've got on our website and on our internal platforms is kind of up to date, you know, because if the data exists or it's out of date or if it's rubbish, the chatbot will find it and it will give an answer. And when it's on a 24/7 basis, you're not going to have an officer there in the middle kind of intercepting. It's going to give someone an answer there in real time. So I think that's also really kind of key that we kind of look at, but it is something that we're going to have access to, and we're going to looking to kind of put that in over the next sort of coming months moving forward.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions. One is, do you have a champion among the councillors for IT?
No,
I don't know who it is.
There would be a strong interview process, though, I think, to select them.
Won't be applying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Yeah, I think, yeah, we would probably maybe, not within each party, maybe, each party should have its own sort of champion. I think, yeah, even a digital champion, and they could then be the kind of the evangelist within their sort of party area. So that's something we can look at for sure.
And I suppose this is sort of related, is Copilot seems to be the thing that we've probably all got access to, because we've got access to the system. It's the thing I've kind of heard of. I mean, I used to work in the IT industry, but I'm way behind now. Could we have some training? I mean, like a couple of hours, just an introduction. And incidentally, I did go to a workshop at the Lib Dem conference where they were talking about the benefits of doing like 2-hour workshops on things, just kind of, you know, introducing something in a very short, intense sort of, you know, rather than sending someone on a week-long training course.
We can pick that with Andrew through like the members. There's a members and Dem services programme, so we can pick that up as a piece of activity there. We've got a webinar which is going to be running in November, haven't we? Which is going to be recorded, and it's open at the moment to all internal kind of officers, and that's going to be sort of showing, I suppose, people what the kind of the Microsoft Copilot chat can do. So the free version, there's no reason why that couldn't be put onto like your SharePoint site for you to kind of have access to. And then in terms of our adoption of Copilot moving forward, we're going to be running sort of focused workshops with like Children's Services Highways to look at the use cases So there's no reason why we couldn't do something with dem services, looking at it through the lens of a counsellor essentially. So yeah, we can sort of take that away for sure.
Thanks. Alison.
So it was mentioned how difficult it is to find things on the council website. When I asked the search function for the AI policy, it didn't give me anything. And I wasn't quite sure when it was adopted in May, because I know it wasn't on the agenda for full council nor executive.
Yeah, it's an internal policy for sort of staff and probably for councillors as well. We probably need to kind of get that in front of
Yeah, I
councillors.
mean, because it applies to elected officers.
Yeah.
Perhaps because I did search, but I couldn't see I'd been sent it in an email.
Yeah, we can.
So if you could share that with us,
Yeah.
that would be really helpful. And then my second question was about how's the comms team using AI? Because obviously it's fantastic. You know, you just put a few bullet points and you can say, produce a press release, write an advert, write an email, you know, and it can save so much time on people sitting there and thinking really hard about how to express themselves.
Yeah, it's a really good question. The comms team are part of the same directorate. So Glyn and Dave Allen, for example, are heads of service within our team. I would say his team, Dave's team, are asking us all the time how we can leverage new technology, because in the same way that customer services are, you're absolutely right. So, for example, if I'm looking to write a slide deck for this evening, some things are written by AI, but you can, for example, where you've got complex documents, I would use them myself. So where we've got like the NHS 10-year plan, I have asked it questions about the impacts on local authorities, and I'm using it to inform my thinking, and the comms team are the same. So if we take a story, how do we then turn that into a social media post? And if I've got quite a lengthy document, I'll ask it to summarise its key points. So it's absolutely critical for all of us, but comms in particular, I agree, and they are using it.
We're on the first floor, actually.
That's Woking Borough Council for you. We look after our staff.
Stephen.
Thank you. And I just really wanted to say a big thank you for the presentation. It was really excellent and very, very informative. And that's from somebody who is a self-confessed technological ignoramus. So this was really exciting. And Shahid was right to raise the concern that this could replace people. But I think the reality is the way we're trying to approach this, certainly at this stage, is how it can complement and improve efficiency for our staff and release their time to be able to do the core things they need to do. And that case study from Children's Services is incredibly revealing of the benefits. And it's good that you're going to be focusing on Children's Services and highways. These are both areas of the council under enormous pressure. And anything we can do that ease that pressure and release the time of officers to focus on what they really need to do, I think is incredibly helpful. So thank you very much.
Sorry, just to say the question wasn't actually to cause any alarm, just Stephen. It just
it was worth raising.
Yeah, I fully recognise that obviously there's a lot of fear about it, but it's actually, I can see there's a huge benefits, and I think the team highlighted the huge benefits: efficiency, and also aids decision making. I can see it will help actually the executives to make better decisions as well. This is part of the nature. This is why
it is.
This is why the private sector is adopting it, because at the end of the day, it's about data, and data was insight. So information is coming to the executive is more up to date, is more accurate. Therefore, the decision will be better as well, right? So as a result of that,
there's a point made by Bassett as well, and it's a very good point. And I think the key thing from my point of view is that we do need to recognise that this requires a significant investment. But if ever there was an invest to save initiative, it's this.
Yeah, very quickly, I think it's clearly this was an element of oversight as part of this committee, but I think it shows the value that it can also give to the scrutiny side of the function. And moving forward to give councillors the opportunity to be able to access data far more quickly and effectively will give us an ability to help residents and perform our function really well. I'm sure AI is going to transform the council and indeed the world over the next coming years, and we need to be front and centre of that process. And I know you said that it'll help improve executive decisions, and I'm sure it will. But until it does, we are here to help you as well, Stephen.
If I may be so bold, that was in a sense the whole point of this, the whole point of trying to get you involved in overviews so you can help us in a meaningful way at an early enough stage to make a difference. And that's what I'm very keen to promote, as you know.
I don't know if that's the end of the questions. The point about the website bot, I think, is a real opportunity for us to be able to call on our councillor colleagues to say, is there an opportunity around the testing? You will use our website, not like we do as officers, but as our residents do. So we will work with residents as well, but we would really welcome being able to work with if there are councillors that are interested in that testing. And then the only thing I wanted to end on, I think Shahid raised a really good point. Do you see this as an opportunity or a threat? I would see this as absolutely an opportunity, and we are approaching it in that way, because I think it gives us a real chance to be able to be, as Graham said, not on the bleeding edge, but really adopting and supporting new ways of working as a local authority, which is critical at a time of just ever increasing demand and complexity of need.
Yes, Bassett.
And quickly, the main thing around this is, which I'm happy that council is adopting to AI, it would be mainly around moving people higher in the value chain in terms of digital transformation. So I think that would be the next thing, as it was mentioned that I myself see that as opportunity, and I would be more interested to know how we are going to move people higher in the value chain so that we serve our residents in the best possible way with all these technologies, and then move resources higher in the value chain. I don't see as of now any impact to the service if we are successfully move people higher in the value chain. Thanks. I think that's the point I wanted to mention.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, any more? No, thank you very much. Thank you, all the officers, and Stephen and Rachel for coming along. Right, on to the, let me go.
And also AI saying this, that, and
Oh,
the
yeah,
main
yeah.
code.
Yeah. Okay, on to the draft work programmes on page 108. Alison.
Can I ask why there's no executive forward programme included in the agenda?
It hasn't changed since the previous discussion a couple of weeks ago, so I'm assuming it will change for the next meeting.
If it happens again, could you just include it for us, please, Neil?
Yes, can do.
Thank you.
Or at least say that refer back to the one before, and then you'd know to refer back to the one before. Yeah, this page intentionally left, yes. I think that would do, wouldn't it? Not print it again, just say, because we've all got access to the last agenda. Okay, anything on page 108? There's only that one item on the 5th of November. Are we likely to get anything else, Neil?
Discussions are going on about whether we can get another item.
Okay. Moving on to page 110.
No, sorry, could I just say, did Neil mean moving that item into the other meeting and not having a meeting, or you mean?
That's one option. So, but there's other, community and corporate has got a lot of items on its next few meetings, so maybe bringing one or two of those across to spread the load.
Shall we look at that?
Surprised Mark's not here then to push that on us.
Well, he was supposed to be here, but his flight changed or something. So he's on a business trip. He's on a business trip, and I only heard about this afternoon. Oh, you knew that? Anyway, I only heard this afternoon. It was very short notice. Okay, page 110. Anything on that? It's a bit further off in the future. Children's services. I don't suppose anyone's got anything. Page 112, page 113, that's all children's services. And then page 114, we still haven't got an outside speaker, have we?
No, we're still working on it, Chair. Page 116, no, that's more, more climate emergency. Okay, community and corporate. This is where we might be gaining items from here to this committee, Neil, isn't it? What was the particular, it was Gray's Farm that they were proposing to move. So that just hasn't been finalised yet? Or is it? No, well, the agenda goes out next week, so we will be finalising it soon.
Right, okay. Page 118. 119. 120. 121, health overview and scrutiny, sorry. Anything about Beth? No. 17th of December? No way. Okay, page 124. It's the last one. Okay, agenda item 44, action tracker. Any comments on this? Page 125. Page 126.
So, in our advertising policy on the page 126, I believe the executive did follow the recommendation of the committee. Did the leader agree the further lobbying?
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah. Yes, he rather stressed that, to be honest, because there were, you know, people there were people there present, and he did sort of, I wasn't present because I was on Teams, but I seem to remember that he was very insistent that this is the beginning rather than the end, and there would be lobbying, yes. Okay, any more? Well, I declare the meeting closed then. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you, Bassett.